Hello. Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Nicole Zafian and I am the head of content and education here at CLOC. We're thrilled to bring you today's session with the Ask the Expert panel on legal transformation projects with our presenting sponsor Onit and Simply Legal. Before we get started, I just want to point out a couple of things to help you get the most out of today's session. We have the chat feature available for you to comment with each other, chat with other attendees, also just kind of respond to the conversation and how today's session's flowing. We also have our Q&A feature available. Those are for you to submit any questions that you have for the actual experts to respond to. We'll be moderating those and hopefully get to as many questions as we can throughout today's session. And if you need any help, CLOC staff is here to support you in any tech issues you may have. We're also recording today's session, so you'll be able to rewatch at any time, or if you have to leave for early for any reason, you can come back and check out the recording for anything you might have missed. With that, I want to welcome you all and thank you for joining us. And thank you to our amazing sponsor, Onit and Simply Legal, for putting this all together. So I'll hand it over to Onit's SVP of Strategy and Growth, Brad Rogers.
Well, thank you very much, Nicole. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the virtual Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas, where the best CLOC meetings happen. Crazy times now. Good to see you all. Saw a lot of the names of you who are joining and miss you seeing you live, that's for sure. I'm joined here today by Danielle Antill from Barings, Danielle, Tony Curzio from Mass Mutual, and Sarah Mintz from Barings. And my name is Brad Rogers. I'm SVP of Strategy and Growth at Onit and Simply Legal. And we're here to talk about legal transformation today. And in a minute, we'll get to introductions of the panelists today. I'll be moderating and also participating. We met several times before this in preparation, and we've gathered some questions from many of you on the call. We'll be going through those questions, and some or all of us will answer those with the intent of stepping into your shoes where you are, either thinking about a transformation, you're just starting one, and you're in the thick of it. And so to bring best practices, thoughts, lessons learned, perspectives, and anything we think that would be helpful for you on that journey. And so that's the spirit of how we prepared for this. And we have a few questions here. And as mentioned, there's a group chat there. We'll follow along with that. If you have any questions, we'll try and accommodate those as well. So we'll go do introductions. I'll go last. I'll start with Danielle. Would you mind giving us an introduction of your journey, your transformation journey, professional, what brings you here today?
Sure. Thanks, Brad. So I'll try to keep this short. But good afternoon, everyone. Just want to say a quick thank you to CLOC for having us on the panel today. My name is Danielle Antill, and I'm currently the Director of Legal Operations at Barings. My entire team is actually on this call today. Sarah Mintz and myself are a mighty team of two. In short, my role at Barings broadly focuses on all business management aspects of the legal department, implementation of the GC's initiatives, and overall department strategy. Prior to Barings, I've held various legal ops roles. I also spent some time in the regulatory space investigating regulatory inquiries from various securities enforcement regulators. The start of my legal education and experience actually began in the military, where I served as a paralegal in the Army for 6 years. So I'm supposed to mention one big transformation project that I've been a part of. And while I've been through various technology transformations, I wanted to mention a different kind of transformation focused on law firm relationships. So last year, we implemented our internal relationship manager, or IRM, program, assigning an in-house lawyer to serve as a relationship manager to each of our top 20 outside law firms, with the goal of intentional relationship management. So the IRM serves as a liaison between Barings and the law firm for relationship-related communication, in addition to legal ops. So the core logistics of the program launch included scheduling yearly relationship meetings and sharing our internal law firm performance survey results with the top firms for the first time, which, believe it or not, a lot of the law firms were appreciative of. I would say the major benefit of this relationship transformation program has been the ability to have more open and candid discussions with our law firms on topics such as discounts, timekeeper rates, and performance issues, which aren't always the easiest to discuss. If anyone has any questions about this later, I'm more than happy to talk about the program.
Thank you, Danielle. Tony Curzio.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Tony Curzio. I'm the program manager for legal technology and strategic projects for the law department at Mass Mutual. And that covers a broad spectrum of various things, from technology to various value stream assessments and business process changes. So I joined the law operations team a little over 6 years ago as part of a sort of a transformation of the legal operations function that was a byproduct of an enterprise-wide lean initiative that sort of looked at business processes and really brought a lot of business model approaches to the legal department. Additionally, I've spent the bulk of my tenure, a little over 20 years at Mass Mutual, developing my knowledge around business process. I have a deep operational function here from an insurance perspective, big focus on continuous improvement, as well as sort of change management, readiness, and other technology implementations, because technology implementations, in my experience, are usually successful. Where you have difficulty is sort of ensuring that utilization, adoption, and change management readiness are practically applied and people really get the benefits of utilizing the tool. The key transformation that I want to bring to the table today is really over the past 3 to 4 years, I've been focused on the development and implementation of what we had was a technology roadmap that really focused on moving Mass Mutual Law Department to a cloud-based infrastructure with enterprise legal management, content and knowledge management, and sort of workflow as the foundation behind those things. So, thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Tony. Sarah Mintz.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much to CLOC for allowing me the opportunity to share about my thoughts and experiences in regard to legal transformation. So I began my legal career as almost a second career. I had spent 10 years in marketing for a high-end food retailer, and then I had transitioned over to legal operations, first with a small boutique law firm, and then I had moved on from there to a corporate legal support role. I had worked for a broker-dealer where I was involved with kind of transforming how we provided documents requested from regulators to ensure that our customer privacy was maintained. And then in my current role at Barings as the legal operations analyst, as Danielle shared, we work together. So I provide reporting to our general counsel and our chief legal officer, along with assisting our legal director with our general counsel's initiatives. One of the transformation projects that I've been involved with here at Barings is transforming our UK pay. When we had first implemented Simple Legal in 2018, the UK pay was not part of the integration into Workday, and it was a pretty nuanced process. And so I was involved in making sure that we could create workflows that worked for the UK team, and we were able to partner with them and various stakeholders to create that process for them. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Tony and Danielle. I think we lost Tony. He should be joining back here in a minute. I'll give you, so my introduction, and I'll tell you a little bit about my background. So currently, I work I'm an SVP of Strategy and Growth at a legal tech company called Onit. Onit, Simple Legal is a division of Onit. And we sell matter management and e-billing software along with contract lifecycle management, AI capabilities, and workflow capabilities to work around custom processes inside of an organization. And my journey has been, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer with an MBA, and over my decades journey, I have executed over 10 major transformation in 5 different large Fortune 100 companies of really pursuing a ambitious business strategy, typically on the growth or breakout performance level to really change. So that's what I've done with some pretty incredible teams and successes out of that, including legal ops. I was a COO of law at a Fortune 50 financial services firm, and have coached and participated in other legal transformations. In fact, I'm willing to help any of you all out if you want to call me after this, and to think about your transformation journey. And then in my remarks today, when I chime in, I won't be referring to any single one of my prior employers, but I will put it in such a way that it is intended to be helpful to you to think about how you might do something that is a transformative and sticks. One thing I can tell you about is in that potential of transformation, have delivered to enable it 4 major categories of work. One is a large technology platform, including many different pieces that were integrated or connected as part of that journey. A list of several tools or teams or services for lawyers to help them if they've got something that is not law that they can get help with, so standing those up. 3 world-class legal departments. So what does that look like? How do you build it? How do you follow the arc of the journey of transformation with a long-lasting, purpose-built legal ops team? And finally, given the permission to do what I call operating model transformation. Say, let's look at the way we do law, and let's rethink that. Let's think about how, given the tools and capabilities in the future that are driving the disruption in the industry, and perhaps some ambitious goals, what can we do to help that? So I've had that permission and rethought the operating model, and delivered some massive amounts of productivity back to the lawyers, significant reduction in outside counsel in environments where the business has grown around it, and also being characterized as a best-in-class or world-class capability. So that's some of the background I'd like to share with you as we talk today. And so now back to the questions. That's kind of where we're coming from, Danielle, Tony, Sarah, and I. And so we got to start with some questions here. The first question is, how can we ensure that the legal ops projects are part of the regular corporate budget and the roadmap of transformation programs? I was going to start off with Tony here on this one. He's dialing back in, I believe. I have some thoughts on this one. First, I'll throw it out and say, Danielle or Sarah, did you want to chime in on this, or should I start?
Sure, you can go ahead, Brad.
Okay, great. So let's talk about this. Where do you fit in the corporate program and getting budget and kind of the regular corporate budget and roadmap? I'll start by saying that's a two-edged sword. There's 2 paths here. One is you are part of the machine. You are part of the corporate PMO, help, budgeting, and the expectations of rigor. The other path is there might be a way here where you could self-fund this. You're kind of on team, on the legal team, and you have your own rigor and project management and such. So I'll say that. So let me put on a couple thoughts here I think that are relevant as far as how you should look at transformation and how it would connect to this. Because transformation is a journey. It is a disruptive, often messy journey. I call it an emergent strategy, where you might not be able to plan exactly where you're going, but you know where you want to get it goal-wise, but the way you get there zigs and zags, an emergent strategy. The analogy I like is you're not building a building. Some people use the building analogy, but that implies square corners. You can count the bolts and you know when you're done. I think of it more as building a city where there are people involved, the neighborhoods go slower, faster, it's messy. So to be connected to a corporate and to last a journey that may be years long and it's messy along the way, I recommend you keep two sets of principles in mind the entire way. One, what are the primary goals of your GC? And I'll suggest there are three in order. And you need to align to these, and you figure out how you align to these. One is your GC's top priority is to protect this company and do good law. Two, your GC wants to have a team of highly engaged top talent. And three, think about efficiency or maybe being world-class or excellent, in that order. So when you're connecting to your GC's goals, it's not just about saving money or making your lawyers happy and engaged, making sure there's ability for us to be better at protecting this company and doing good law. Key, keep that in mind the whole time. You will keep your GC engaged. Second is the core reasons why you're transforming in the first place. You need to be able to say this on an elevator, in a town hall, in team meetings, etc., as you go through this. And I would suggest four. Here's may change. I'm talking about transformation. So one has something. It sounds like productivity, but I call we need a data-driven staffing model. We need to understand how many resources we need of what type. And one way to say it is I need to know how many lawyers I need, and I'm not presuming I need fewer. So if your team thinks that you're going to have better data to ask for resources in the future and be able to dial in the right ones, that's helpful. Second, I need to help my leadership team and my GC understand the legal exposure of this complicated organization. So that includes understanding my matters, the types of matters, the risks, etc. Three, I need to optimize my outside counsel spend. Why is it 30% of my budget, not 50, not 20? Why is it this much? Why do I have these vendors? Is there any way I can outsource or insource? All this stuff, but you're always driving for optimizing your outside counsel spend. And fourth, I would say, the principle here, we need to leverage our data as an asset. Part of that is selfish for a legal ops team. You need the raw material to be able to think differently about the journey you're on, and you need to give your leadership team and your lawyers some data to help them manage their businesses better. But that's the fourth priority there, I would say. So,
hey, Brad, it looks like Tony is only going to be on the phone from here on out.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, Tony, I see you're back.
Yep,
Tony, did you hear the question? You want to contribute to that one?
I did not hear the question. I heard sort of your response, so if you could repeat the question, that'd be great.
Okay, sure. This is how to ensure legal ops projects are part of a regular corporate budget and that program of transformation programs.
Oh, okay, very good. So really, from my perspective, it's starting off and establishing by developing sort of a high-level plan, strategy, and roadmap that really allows you to articulate your business case and why funding might be needed, and then be able to both actively and passively communicate it, really sort of making sure you can be opportunistic and be visible. Now, funding methods at different companies are very, very different. I know in my tenure at MassMutual, I've probably seen 3 or 4 different funding models that kind of go through as we have it. And it's really just, understanding, are you going to be technology focused, operational focused, or a combination of both? And the key to anything starts here with really understanding and engaging with the process that exists at your company, and then network and be at the table for those funding exercises, whether it's a tactical planning committee or working with your finance area on sort of cost center level funding and accounting on an annual basis. That's sort of been my approach.
Great. Thank you, Tony. The next question we have here is, how can I best support my team to develop a process-based mindset? We have a great team of ex-lawyers. They're not necessarily trained in operational excellence. How can I best help this team to develop these skills? Sarah, you want to answer that one?
Absolutely, thank you. So I can just kind of give an example of what we did recently when we were transforming the UK Pay and integrating them into Workday and Simple Legal, is that we did some trainings and we made sure that the trainings that we held and provided were tailor-made to our audience. We wanted to provide them and showcase to them the efficiencies that were most meaningful and directly impacted them. We kept it clear and concise. We did small trainings, they were 20 to 30 minutes. We were able to share live like how the new process would work and how to navigate it. So instead of just kind of having like a PDF or a PowerPoint, like we were able to show them live like how the new process would work. And I think that was like really impactful for them to be able to actually see it instead of just hearing about it. And then afterwards, we did have support materials. We had guidance that they can reference later if they need to kind of walk through the new processes. And I think that also kind of reiterates and kind of backs up that the new processes like need to be followed and that they are going to provide efficiencies for them. And I also think, it's challenging if someone isn't coming from a process-based mindset, but just to also like show compassion and empathy and know that, people can develop that muscle and that skill. And then I think another thing that we try to do is we offer ourselves as a support and a resource, as they're learning a new process and as they're transforming. And I feel like that makes them like more comfortable and more excited to join in that transformation if they know that they have the resources and the support and the compassion to really be able to work through and get on board with the new process.
Thank you, Sarah. I want to pile on that one a little bit here. I'm a Six Sigma Master Black Belt, so that can get very geeky on the whole process world. And so I would say this in answer to that question, be careful here with lawyers because you don't want to come across as someone who's speaking an entirely different language to them. And I think of that language to lawyers in between art and process is a world of practice. Practice is where they live. If you talk about process to the point where you think you're not seeing the world the way they are. However, there are a lot of processes in legal. And for example, conflicts waivers. We're going to repeat this and we're going to do it over and over again and maybe even implement some workflow tool around it to make it easier. So one recommendation I have on that is when my team or the transformation team builds anything new, it has to come with a bare minimum process discipline, and that would be three things. One, you have to have a high-level process map. Lawyers love that. Oh, here's how it works. Not too detailed. Two, roles and responsibilities, R&R clarity around that. And three, a dashboard with key operational metrics on there. Those are bare minimum. If we're going to spend the time to build something new, that's required. And eventually it starts to be, this process stuff makes sense. So I'll say, anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Brad and Sarah. And I say, one thing we always do when we're fixing our software, creating a new process, is we always draft those process documents. We always have a document for the lawyers to go back to. As Sarah mentioned, we try to be very helpful and open to questions. When lawyers ask us the questions, we'll give them the answers and also point them back to where they can find it in the guide to help them be a little more process-minded. So that's another way, as Sarah mentioned, that they can exercise those muscles.
Thank you. Hey, before we go to the next question, someone's asking here about kind of the same. It's not process discipline, but it's project management discipline. So project management, just that discipline. So I'm going to take a quick crack at that one here, but I found something that was useful for that. One is I didn't try and teach lawyers how to be a project manager or get into the arcane world of Gantt charts and such, but I had a chart that really resonated with them, and it was super simple, and it helped in the transformation journey. It had a picture of the old way of doing things, that I would listen to your requirements and come back 2 years from now and deliver the car, the full requirements, and hope to God I got it right. In our new environment, this is the world of project management and stuff, is the journey is more agile, really. I had a picture of a skateboard, a bicycle, a scooter, and a car. I said, everything we deliver is going to go through this journey, because you're going to start to get some of the capabilities of it, but not all. So when you're riding a scooter, don't complain about not having air conditioning. So that was just an aha moment for people to say, oh, I see now that we're going through this maturation journey managed by project discipline around it. It was helpful. So I'll throw that out there. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump on that before the next question. Okay. All right. Next question is, how do you start from nothing? So, Tony, you want to start with that one?
Sure. Thanks, Brett. Starting from nothing is an interesting thing. I was in that position early on when I first joined the legal operations team, and I basically started with just an inventory of the current state of the infrastructure, really, from my point of view. And I looked at it from three distinct lenses. I wanted to understand sort of environmentally and infrastructure-wise, what was at end of life, what was at risk from an infrastructure perspective, what was not going to be compatible with the sort of the enterprise tools and architecture. I looked at it from things from an adoption and usability perspective. Where do we have a best-in-class tool? We're simply not using it to its potential, or we're using a small part of it, or with just some minor usability adjustments, it can really meet our needs. And then really, where were we just gapped from a features or capability perspective? And I did a little heat map on it, and it really helped bring transparency to things, and it really helped me establish a business case of what's really sort of an operational readiness opportunity, what's a critical component from an infrastructure perspective where you really have to move forward and address an environmental concern, and then where do you have opportunities to really drive improvement by the addition of new features and capabilities. And that visual that we created really allowed me to begin to tell the story, have a nice discussion around, and be transparent about really where we thought we were, and get feedback from various folks so that they can sort of begin to come along that transformation journey, and that's a nice foundation for the discussion kind of going forward.
Hey, Sarah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of echo a little bit of what Tony said. Is I think it's really important to have a good understanding of what the current processes currently are. And I think that's a really good launch pad to be able to sort of create something out of what appears to be nothing. I also think, along that same line is, don't be afraid to be a learner. If you're new to a place and you feel like you're starting from nothing, like take the time to learn and understand what's currently in place. And I think that really builds future success to be able to create something that's new and exciting for everyone.
Danielle, how about you?
Sure. I definitely agree with Sarah on being a learner. I think both of us have had a lot of that over the last year. I joined Bearings in July, and Sarah joined in November. So we've done a lot of learning over the last year. But I say, how do you start from nothing? I say that, what you do have and what you can build is relationships. If you don't know where to start, I would say building a relationship with your GC and building that trust is so important, because they have initiatives that they want to push down, and they need to trust you that you're going to be able to deliver on those. So I think that that's very important. And then developing relationships with IT, because we all will eventually need to use IT through our various transformation projects, and any kind of business development relationships that you need to build. I think that those are very key before you even start or have any talks of any transformation, just building those relationships.
Thanks, Danielle. I'll add to this too, because I've started many times from scratch as employee number one on a transformation, And I'm going to run through some pointers here from that journey, and in particular how it relates to legal transformation. I'll start with echoing some of the points that were made here on the getting in the minds of your GC or your legal team. But one thing I learned about lawyers is that often they don't want to be the first. They don't want to be innovative. They don't want to go out on a limb, particularly in the world of like a transformation innovation. So the way we said it is like the earlier bird gets the worm, but here the second mouse gets the cheese. So you can start by talking about the word modernization instead of transformation, and talking also about everybody's doing it. This is happening in the market, and what's happening in the market, I think, are four forces driving this disruption is basically now forcing GCs to say, I need to start thinking differently about my legal department. And those four forces are, one, I would say, the technology revolution. You've got a whole bunch of new technology, AI for sure. I don't think AI is going to be taking lawyers' jobs away, but the value of technology is to help streamline and get the data that you need to think differently about your team. Second, I would call the legal ops revolution. We're the folks who are going to take that data and help think differently about it and manage the business with business discipline. I'll say this, a couple of years ago, back when we were in Vegas at the Bellagio, I'm looking across the CLOC ballroom at 2,500 legal ops professionals. 5 years before that, that CLOC room had 8 people in it. That's an example of the legal ops revolution we're going through. Third is the replacement cost revolution, I would say. Used to be you had lawyers, paralegals, admins. Now you have many different ways to get work done. Some of them didn't exist 5 years or even 10 years ago, and leveraging those is what's going to enable you to change the staffing equation in your shop, which is one of the deepest transformations you can make. So that's that. One, I would encourage you to assess your authority. If you don't have it, you need to align with someone who does, someone who can allocate resources and attract budgeting. Next, you need a guiding coalition. Like you were saying, you need some friends. They don't have to be senior lawyers. They can be young lawyers who want to do something good. You need some data. Either you look at your outside counsel data, or here's a trick for you. You can do an activity analysis to understand where your lawyers spend their time and do some analysis on that. You can look at the activities or you can look at how they allocate their time to different areas of legal specialty. This is the study that launches 1,000 ships. If you have the data that shows, well, I have this many lawyers here that are organized in an org chart like this, but actually the practices that they support or the types of law they support is completely different. Call it your hidden factories. It's a completely different way of looking at the business. And figure out where your budget's going to come from. You're going to free up some outside counsel spend. You make friends with your IT department because they have great ways to get budget, the strategic route, or your own law department budget. And I'll leave it on this one here is, when you work with your GC, attrition is your friend. If you have somebody in your organization who leaves and that budget's available, perfect time to say, how about we repurpose that budget for something else? Bloodless coup. And it could be your friend. So that's that question. Next question here is, how do you best ensure you have the appropriate talent available when you need to scale up quickly? Tony, you want to start on that one?
Sure, and I'm going to sort of build upon a theme I've been hearing around sort of building relationships, making friends, because in this particular space, it's key to sort of network to establish a system or a bench of both internal and external resources that you can tap into. It could be vendor relationships that can help you drive success, and you can help them be successful. And one of the goals we have, the best advice I ever got from one of our senior executives around the Mass Mutual was, really, we want to try to be the individual that the individuals we work with want to pick up the phone and talk to and work with. And that could be subject matter experts, the consultants that you might need to have, whether it's specialized capabilities or very generic types of things, business analysts, project managers, contract attorneys. It's really sort of having an understanding of the network that's out there, establishing relationships, and sort of prepping the ground in advance so that you can be fungible and bring in the right resources at the right time in a reasonably short period of time.
I'll add to this some tricks on this one. 3 ideas for you on your journey here to get talent on tap, I'll call it. So 1, in your outside counsel panel, you could add some ALSPs. So your lawyers have a choice to go beyond a law firm, $800 an hour. They could go to an ALFP for a certain task for much cheaper. They get the win, you get the win, and ideally, if you own the outside counsel budget, you keep the win. Second, this may take a little while. You can start out slow, but if you have teams associated with you, maybe managed by the legal ops team, talent on tap of offshore teams. You could have offshore lawyers or maybe some other offshore talent, call it talent on tap, and lawyers have a task or a project or something legal. They call up the legal ops team. Can I get some help with this? Say, you bet. I've got some folks in India who can take this off your hands. And you build credibility with those projects getting more and more complex, and pretty soon you have a team of many FTEs of free help you're giving your lawyers. It's a huge win. And then finally, on the legal ops team, look for strong people in your organization that might want to make this switch. And one way to do that, maybe rethink your admin model. You could take admins and maybe have them report in one collective group rather than individually, and rethink that model, maybe free up some funding. But you could have some of those admins join your team. They're super strong. They could be your billing manager, your matter manager, your records manager, your legal holds manager, stuff like that. So you can do a swap, budget neutral swap. These folks are terrific, and they are ripe for a promotion or double promotion to be part of your team and knock it out of the park. Let's see. Let me ask the next question, Danielle. Often legal ops is based in the USA, but supports the entire globe.
Yep.
What advice do you have for scaling up a project globally from a USA base?
Sure. So I have some very real experience, as Barings is the first global company that I've had legal ops experience in. So I say always, be mindful of your audience. And, if you're headquartered in the U.S. and have your main presence in the U.S., always be mindful not to be as U.S.-centric when you're talking about processes. I think also, just consider the variables that the other jurisdiction may have to deal with. So, for example, Sarah was mentioning the implementation of the UK into our legal billing system. So we have the US, we have Asia Pac, and we have Europe, all in our legal billing system. And with VAT and different nuances for certain countries, having one process to fit all is just unrealistic. So I think you really have to understand the process and the difficulties that other jurisdictions are going through in order to map your process and create transformation. And I would say just be willing to compromise and know when to what you should compromise on and what you can map into your other processes.
And Danielle, follow-up question on that. Some of those places around the globe, I would imagine they have a range of sizes, right? So you probably have some small offices and such.
Yes.
Is there any lessons learned around that that come to mind?
Not really lessons learned, but even though you may have a smaller office or a smaller legal department in a certain part of the country, it doesn't mean that their issues are any smaller. So always take them into as large of consideration as you would the ones in the U.S.
Thank you. And all right, so we got another question here. By the way, thanks everybody for asking these questions in advance. And we're watching the group chat too. If you have any follow-up questions to anything we've said so far, or just a random question comes to your mind, put it in there. We'll monitor that. So this question here, and I'll start with you, Sarah, on this one. How do you break down silos and avoid turf wars? And what's the best-in-class operational support model to transform the global legal function?
Sure, yeah, thank you for that question. So as Danielle shared, the UK Pay is a recent transformation that we've brought them into the Simple Legal Workday integration. And I think that one of the first steps that we did is we wanted to understand their current process, and we wanted to partner with them to make sure that we understood how they had been processing things, how the certain requirements that they still needed, and we wanted to really just do it as a team effort. You know, it wasn't possible to sort of mold their process into what we were currently doing. So we really had to create a new process instead of just mirroring what we were doing. You know, we were able to map it out and ask for feedback and their input. And I think that was really impactful to kind of work together as a team to make sure we came up with the best solution and transformation to kind of bring them into the fold. You know, there is no like one size fits all. So we definitely took like an agile approach, and we partnered with the UK team and then the key stakeholders just to ensure that the new pay flows and the work flows like worked for them. And I think that really like helped build like a stronger relationship with them and really avoided any sort of tension that might have been there, you know, if we had just come in and didn't want to partner with them. But we really used them as a resource and work together to create the best solution for everyone. And so I think that's really important in creating, you know, avoiding turf wars is, you know, having compassion, working together, and just making sure that everyone's voice is heard. And like Danielle said, you know, compromising. And I think that's the best way to do that.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add to that?
I would just say too, you know, in this specific instance and in other instances, you know, the business unit that you may be working with, sometimes change isn't always well received, as we know. But I think when, you know, you build those relationships and the business unit you're working with feels like you're a true advocate for them and you want to make actual positive change, it makes, you know, silos come down, and it makes those roadblocks and challenges just a little bit easier.
Thank you. And I'll throw some thoughts on the second half of that question about basically what does best-in-class legal ops support look like. And I think as you approach this, so I'll describe a little bit what it would look like in a level of maturity that's not from scratch. You may be starting from scratch, and that I suggest you keep in mind the purpose, your mission, is ultimately you want to be able to say to all your lawyers, if you're doing something that's not law, bring it to the ops team. And that's kind of the journey you're on, and presume that in their day-to-day or week-to-week work, there's a whole bunch of their day, my estimation is 30%, calculated. 30% of their work could and should be offloaded to free them up to focus on innovation and growth. That's your mission. Another perspective I would bring, so we talked about the roadmap and this journey of transformation. In the roadmap, that presumes that you're going to be building pieces of it along the way in sequence. So some's done, some's finished. But your whole world is about building, then running. Build, run, build, run. So at the run part, you're going to hand it off to somebody to operationalize that. It's going to be part of the business model. But at the beginning, you're inventing it, you're building it, you're going through the disruption, and you're refining it, all that. That is your world. Ultimately, you're going to be at the end, and you're going to look back and say, now I'm running the legal ops department. No more transformation, no more build. But keep that in mind. So your team would reflect that. And I think about a world-class team looks like this. You've got folks doing the build. Like who? And these might be different roles, different people, but they might be the same person doing different roles. But process design, improvement, workflow, app design, all this kind of process work in design. 2, a secret weapon, someone on your team that understands data and analytics, that can liaise with your technology partners, but also report design, teasing insights around reports, a data geek. In the world of most firms that I've been in, is a technology owns the pipes, but the data in that pipes is the businesses. So that's a huge one there. And somebody's going to need to stand up all these vendors and partners when you do that part of build. So who's your vendor stand up, your service agreements, all that good stuff. Then on the run part, you need to run your panel and vendor management long term, maybe e-discovery, legal holds, records management, the quality of your matter management system and make sure people are using it correctly, the billing system, and ideally you've got some teams that are under legal ops that are these talent on tap. So maybe you have some analytics team, maybe some of that's offshore, you've got a hybrid admin model that is like servicing everybody, and maybe talent on tap, offshore legal team that they dial you up and say, I need some help, and you give them help. I think those are some components and ways of thinking about a world-class legal ops organization. We got another question here. What are some effective ways to introduce the benefits of legal transformation projects to a culture and a management team that might not be tech savvy? So Danielle and then Tony, you want to pitch in on this one?
Sure. So I would say my 2 points here would be keep it simple. Keep it very simple. And 2, do your research. So when I say keep it simple, I mean when you're presenting this transformation, come up with graphs, visuals, some high-level KPIs. Keep it high level, keep it simple, tell them exactly what they need to know, and don't get too in the weeds when you're pitching this stuff. And then the other point, do your research. I would say, anticipate those questions that they may ask. The questions, well, this is the way we've always done it. Why should we be doing this? Come with those elevator pitch, pre-rehearsed answers that that they're going to ask the questions of.
Thank you.
And I think
Tony?
Building off that a little bit, I think it's key to sort of understand the difference between someone not being tech savvy and then not understanding the value of the technology. I think communicating that you're really there to enable them and communicate effectively with them. I love Danielle's point of keeping it simple. The phrase that I was taught a while back was, sometimes ducks and bunnies are the easiest things to communicate to folks. Give them the information that they need, that they can absorb quickly, that helps them understand the direction you're going, and don't over sort of complicate things. And it's also important to understand and segment those impacted parties. You got to sort of know your audience and play the long game. Don't necessarily have to get it as something done instantaneously or get them to acknowledge it instantaneously. The analogy of the boiling frog, where you're slowly turning up the heat and slowly turning up the communication and the knowledge base and continuously communicating, can be a really valuable asset to you.
Thank you. Next topic here is what can GCs do to decrease the workload of their in-house lawyers or staff without increasing outside counsel spend? Danielle, you want to start?
Sure. So I when I'm looking at process improvements, my main goal is to always reduce the amount of administrative work that lawyers are doing. Their time can be better spent elsewhere. So that is really my main goal when I'm looking at any process that we do. And into shifting to paralegals, shifting to another resource. We recently just, it was actually kind of over the course of a year, we looked at a process that we were looking to outsource, and we essentially, instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to outsource this process, we made a risk-based decision and decided that this process wasn't a huge risk to the firm, and decided that we could come up with a couple key points that we wanted to make sure and negotiate, and decided to handle that in-house. So I think some of it is deciding who needs to be handling what and making risk-based decisions kind of off of that.
Thank you, Danielle. Tony, you have a thought on that one?
Yeah, I think one of the things you want to be able to do is just bring transparency to the overall process that would allow the leadership team, the managers in the organization to really understand the work that's happening, and then be able to right-size that work, very similar to what Danielle had mentioned, where you can give opportunities for paralegals and non-legal professionals. You can give them challenging opportunities. And building on your point earlier, Brad, around leveraging the administrative the executive admin team, that's been a real success story here at MassMutual, where they can be engaged in providing support around proofreading, reporting, coaching and mentoring on technology, doing some various research. They are really a great venue and path into the attorneys and others, because they are trusted resources. So that was a great observation you had made earlier.
Yeah, great, thank you. I'll add on to this one here. So we're talking about how basically how to keep budget neutral and help the lawyers out here with this. One way I'd like to think about this, or suggest that we all think about this, is transformation leaders. The ultimate goal is this: how do we reallocate the work appropriately? How do we have the data to help us understand that? And there's two paths I think about on that. One is, what kind of law do we practice? This is the hidden factories. And your team would be comforted by the fact that you say, it's a two-way street. I can outsource some of that work. I can insource some of that work. For example, you're looking at why don't I just hire one or two more lawyers in-house rather than trading this work away all the time? Or you could look at it and say, for example, you do the analysis and say, 20 lawyers are doing this work part-time. It adds up to 5 lawyers worth of work, and that equals this much money for this much volume. You could shop that to some of your best outside counsel partners and say, how about you take this work from us and cut us a deal? The only thing between you and us is a managed service agreement. You guarantee the good work. You could cut the cost of that in half. You free up your lawyers, and so that's one way. One way is routing the work one way or the other in whole. The other is taking advantage of these teams of ALSPs or offshore, or maybe a more beneficial mix of a lawyer to paraprofessional. Here is teaching your lawyers how to disaggregate the work of a matter and say, you are now going to be doing some project management here, because you're going to give some of that work to somebody else, thus freeing you up to do, we call it at the top of your license. You should be working at the top of your license. And so those two paths, I think, are the operating model transformation. That's where the real deep change comes from, in my opinion. Okay, so, and then, Sarah, should I go to the next question, or did you?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'll start with you on this next one, Sarah. Is what are the implications of in-house legal transformations on your outside counsel? How would they need to engage, if at all?
Sure. So kind of going back to our UK pay transformation, during that process of updating information and simple legal, we actually had a blackout period that outside vendors could not upload invoices. And so we just made sure to send out a clear communication, a week prior so that they were aware of what was happening, they knew why it was happening and what we were doing, and then how it would really benefit them. And so I would just encourage people to just be transparent. You can't over communicate. You can always under communicate, but you can't over communicate. And just be in constant contact. And that really helps build, I think, a great relationship with, outside vendors that we engage with.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I guess I was a little nervous to get the responses back from our vendors once we sent out that communication that we were blacking out the system for almost 3 weeks and they couldn't submit legal invoices. But as Sarah mentioned, we gave them all the details. We said how this would streamline the process of them getting paid, and I'm sure that was pretty well received. So in a very positive manner, they sent us back, good luck on the project, hope it goes well. And we had some very positive responses. So I would just say, again, just be very transparent and over-communicative where possible.
Thank you. And I'll just throw a tip out there. Your best outside counsel vendors and maybe even some of your other vendors are dying to help you out on DEI priorities. So we talk to your key law firms or maybe other partners, say, we are very interested in moving the needle on DEI. We believe in this. And they have a lot of thoughts, ideas that they're willing to share, and they're looking for a willing partner. So I'll put that out there. That's a nice find. Lastly here, I'll go around the horn here. We're ready to wrap up. I'm looking at the questions here. And one last question, lightning round. And I'll start in the order that I started with. So Danielle, Tony, Sarah, and if we have time, I'll answer. But here, if you could go back and start over, what lesson learned would have the biggest impact the second time?
I would say for me, it's only including the key stakeholders in the working group of your legal transformation project. It doesn't need to be, I think at the beginning and the discussions before the actual work takes place, there may be more stakeholders, but when you're driving that actual work plan and doing the work for the transformation, only keeping that small group of folks who can then relay that information on, I think that learn lessons of having not done that in the past and then having done that, I think that creates better success in legal transformation.
Thank you. Tony?
Building off that a little bit, I think communications and awareness are key. Being very transparent to what you're trying to do, communicating to folks what's really in it for them, what's the impact for them, and building off something that Sarah said earlier, it really is about making problem solving for them and including them in the overall process. So just be inclusive and over communicate when you can. And food never hurts. A little harder in the virtual environment.
Oh, good idea.
Lunch.
Sure. So, I think always coming from a place that not everyone likes change or is willing to participate and be agents of change. And so sometimes going through transformation is challenging for some people. And I think just being compassionate and really empathetic and aware of that, that sometimes some people just need additional support. And I think that's always something I think that I always want to focus on and make sure that's a lesson learned. Always know that some people don't like change, be mindful of that. And one of my favorite quotes by the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is, fight for the things that you care about and then do it in a way that leads others to join you. And so I think that's kind of a lesson learned, been my philosophy kind of going forward is, push transformation, but do it in a way that others want to join you.
Thank you. And I'll add to totally echo the change management theme we're talking about here, but I would have invested more in ongoing training and refresher materials so that people know how to use these new processes and tools. So I would add that one. Well, look, I don't know if I'm turning it back over to Danielle or Nicole or not, but I'll close out on behalf of Danielle, Tony, Sarah, and I. Thank you very much for joining. And again, I think all of us, and I in particular, are willing to help out in any way through your journey. So, Nicole, I'll turn it over to you to wrap us up.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And then thank you again to Onit and Simple Legal sponsoring and putting together this session. And it's been great hearing your discussion and offering some great tips for everyone that's on the line. We'll be sharing the recording. And if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to CLOC. Thank you.